What is going on, everyone, and welcome along to almost a new home, a triple double home if you're a basketball fan. We are here with the Super Rugby Preview Show, and not just on my channel anymore. We've expanded, we've exploded into the realms of New Zealand Sport Radio as well. So if you're joining us from there, hello, welcome, and make sure to leave us a comment and let us know where you're coming from, and of course your thoughts on what we are going to be talking about this for this weekend, which is, of course, the Super Rugby round from Super Rugby AU and Super Rugby Aotearoa. We have, of course, our 4 matches coming up, and we're going to be having a look at those games, what we think is going to happen, who we think is going to win, and, of course, we'll be talking about those and the starting lineups, which we have pretty much all of them set up for as well. But, of course, I won't be doing it alone. As per every week, we bring on our special guest, and it's a big, warm welcome from over the ditch. Shane, welcome to our new kind of home. How are you going?
Good, Steve. How are you? It's good to be here on a Thursday afternoon. Good to see you wearing your All Blacks jumper, and I'm wearing my Wallabies cap. It's Team Anzac. It's mate, how good's the rugby been?
It's been outstanding, hasn't it? It's been, especially your side, I think, especially last weekend, the Reds and the Brumbies was an exceptional game. First half, I thought was okay, a little bit, but the second half, she certainly exploded into action. So, yeah, it's racing up, and that was what we talked about last week, wasn't it, when we were here? And about this time, it's around about 5 o'clock. We always go live about 5 o'clock on a Thursday evening here in New Zealand time, or if you're with Shane, it's about 3 o'clock.
3 o'clock, yep.
Oh, look at that. Look at me in time zones. And if you're over in Perth, it'll be about 2 o'clock. And if you're on the other side of the world, where you can work that out for yourself, Google is your best friend. But we're here every week this time to talk about it. Yeah, rugby is going great. This week, though, Shane, we've got 4 games coming to you, but there's no action from the Brumbies, so they've got to cry over that loss to the Reds, their first home loss, and you'll know how long. It's been absolutely forever. And, of course, the Highlanders, who, before we kick things off, and because I'm very patriotic to my own local side here, I don't know if you've seen the news this week, Shane, or today, Shane, just recently, this afternoon, but for New Zealand rugby, or I guess for the Highlanders especially, Folau Fakatava re-signing with the Highlanders, ending all this speculation that he's going to go to the Blues and he's going to go here and there and everywhere. He stayed true to the Highlanders, which you got to give him some respect for. He's staying with Aaron Smith, the combination of the two of them. Great for the Highlanders. They're on the bye this week, so we don't get another chance to talk about these boys, but good for the team, isn't it, to see a player like Fakatava staying with the Highlanders?
You know, I love hearing the stories about people sticking with their mates and staying at the same team. It's really, and it just shows that he's confident with the combinations he's got, and he gets to work with a world-class player like Smith. So good on you, mate, for staying where you are. A bit of loyalty never hurts, and I know because people like me love loyalty, work for the same company, love it, live it. And that sort of thing, it happens everywhere, doesn't it? I mean, you see it with people like Cameron Smith. Now, I'm not a Melbourne Storm fan in the NRL, but he stuck around for, God almighty, years. And look at the success he had there. Yeah. So good on you, young fella. Stay with your mates.
And hopefully you can replicate that success that other long-standing stalwarts have, which means plenty of titles for the Highlanders in the future as well. But hey, let's get on to this week's action. Of course, 4 games. It kicks off over your side of things, Shane, where the Rebels tomorrow night are in action at home against the Waratahs. Then we come over this side, Saturday night, the Hurricanes hosting the Chiefs. Back over your side, the Reds take on the Force. And then on Sunday, I think the game that everyone's going to be most looking forward to seeing is the Blues at home taking on those Crusaders. That's game of the round, isn't it, when you look at it nice and early like this? So we'll get to that one last. Unfortunately, being a Sunday game, as good as everyone loves afternoon rugby and all that sort of jazz, we don't get the teams until very, very late on, and so we can't get to really dissect it. The other 3 games, however, we do have all the teams for. So we're going to go straight into those. Game number 1. Now we've upped the tempo here, Shane. We're into a new little platform. We're going to all sorts of new viewers, and look at this. Whoa, we've got some new little graphics as well. You know, you don't come onto my channel and come onto these videos where I talk way too long to everyone and don't see some pretty little graphics around to see what is going on. There you go. It is the Rebels. I'm on the Rebels side here, Shane. You're on the Waratahs side, that side. So that's a bit unfortunate for you. But a week off for those Waratahs. They'll be coming into the Rebels. Well, I guess two teams in very different places, aren't they? The Waratahs, how can they find some victories? How can they find some wins, some form, I should say, and get themselves with their season on track? They've lost to the Force. Everything's just gone wrong for them, hasn't it?
And it only got worse after that loss to the Force because they started having emergency board meetings to discuss the future of their coach, Rob Penning. Look, it's clearly a rebuilding year, and they've clearly got, in my opinion, the right bloke who should be given the chance to see out the year, to see what he can do with these young blokes. It is going to be frustrating for Waratahs fans. Such is life for Waratahs fans. Other than 14 and 15, where they had that great run where they won the Super Rugby final in 14 and very nearly were playing in the final again the next year. So other than that, yeah, look, it's a confidence thing. Every week now they've just got to play and build up their confidence and build up their level of steam and you know, the Rebels and going to Melbourne where you'll have a fired up crowd because they haven't had public assemblies for over a year at sports. You know, that's going to be an interesting test for them as well.
You're not wrong about that. The first time that the Rebels have been at home at Amy Park since their 20-point victory it was over the Lions on March the 7th, 2020. That is, like you say, over a year ago since the Rebels have been home, as they would call it. So this is a monumental occasion for this team to come back in front of their own local fans. Their team for this weekend has undergone just the one change, if I'm not mistaken, looking through it. And they'll be, I think, fairly comfortable with how their team is performing as well. We'll look through the starting lineups for these two sides before we crack too much on with the teams. For the Rebels, front row, Cobus Eloff, who I think is, we've talked about him every week, haven't we? Eloff, he's been just phenomenal. He partners James Hansen and Pomo Fa'amausili in that front row. Steve Cummins comes in. He's the change in the second row with Trevor Hosea at 5. Josh Kemeny, Richard Hardwick, and Michael Wells are the back row. Joey Powell and Matt Tamua, key cogs, again, as we always say, at 9 and 10. In the midfield, Reece Hodge and Stacey Illy at 13. The left wing, Marika Kolorobeti. Right side, Lachlan Anderson and Tom Pincus at fullback for the Rebels. On the Waratahs side of things, I'm pretty sure they've just got the one change as well. For their side, which that's in the starting lineup as well. A lot of changes on the bench, but just the one change in the starting lineup sees Harry Johnson-Holmes, I'm pretty sure, coming into that starting lineup. He starts the number one jumper with David Porecki at hooker and Tetra Faulkner wearing number 3. Hugh Sinclair and Sam Kidd wear 4 and 5. Lockie Swinton, Carlo Tizzano, impressive again, another impressive Australian, at 7, and Jack Dempsey wearing number 8. Jack Grant is scrum half, Will Harrison at fly half. The midfield, Tepo Maroa and Alex Newsom captaining the team from 13. James Ram on the left wing, Jack Maddox on the right, and Mark Nwanganitawazi at fullback. They've kept those two in the same place, haven't they, Shane, for the Waratahs? Last time they played, we talked a little bit about it. Why he swapped Maddox and Nwanganitawazi around? It didn't quite make much sense to me, but they're stuck with that. Obviously, something they've seen there that has, well, piqued the attention there of the Waratahs coaching staff to keep those two guys like that.
Yeah, and I think he can afford to experiment a little bit because they know that this season's down the drain. But look, I think they're going for a little bit of speed with Maddox on the wing. I can probably only see that probably logic from and Maddox did play a little bit on the wing for the Rebels as well. He should have stuck with the Rebels, actually.
Hindsight,
that decision. You know, but he's a good player. When he's given the ball and the opportunity. So He's obviously sticking with a lot of the same crew. Tizano's been impressive, hasn't he? I mean, he's really stepped up at 7. He gets through, the tackles. He gets through the pilfers. He gets through the works at the breakdown. He gets up and has a run or two. I like him. He's got a lot of work ethic. Swinton is like your karaoke night, big hits, and he delivers with that. Jack Dempsey is like a bull out of a gate with the way he runs. So, and Will Harrison just keeps impressing with his effort at 10. And I really think he reminds me, in a good way. I know Bernard Foley could be patchy at times, but Bernard Foley really played his best rugby when there was derby games. And Will Harrison's proven that over the last year and a half too with the way he's played in derby. So there's a lot to like about the Waratahs. It's just about what sort of consistency, what sort of results they can bring this year. If Super Rugby Trans Tasman goes ahead, I wouldn't expect them to do so well against the New Zealand side either. So they've just got to learn. They've just got to learn where this Rebel side plays a very physical forwards game. They've got some really good backs. Korobiti's on fire. Man, he's playing some great rugby. Tamua's played really well at 10. We've had our doubts, haven't we, Steve, whether he should be a 10 or 12. But he's played really well. Joe Powell has fit in well with the organisation. They're missing Nazarani. They're missing Hayla Petty. If they have those two, they could turn out to be really a lethal side if they can just keep up, with all the rest of the mob, which they seem to be close enough to doing for that playoff spot anyway.
Before we go any too much further, we'd just like to say a big hello to everyone who is tuning in on the chat. Simon is there as well. Jacob tuning in, saying a good afternoon and a hello to you guys. And Nicholas is in there as well. Everyone's going up for the Highlanders. So look at this. We're already getting, look, the show only just started and we've gotten up the Highlanders from Saxon there. So, just brilliant. Keep it in. The guys are on the bye, but everyone's jumping on in with the Highlanders as well, which is awesome to see a little bit of patriotic support there for our boys down here, even though they're not in the game. But big question, and of course, along with your pick for this game, Shane. But are the Rebels going to score some tries this weekend? I mean, against the Waratahs, does it get much worse than that? Does it, the way they've played this season? Surely we'll see Rebels grab a try or two, maybe.
Well, they did last week. I think they grabbed 2 actually, and
more.
It was 2 that counted. But yes, like a good song that you want to hear at a concert, shout out more, as you mentioned. Just on that, I think it's that physical style of game, and they've got to start getting faster. If they can match physical and fast, just like the Crusaders, then the tries will come if they're patient. Sometimes they don't. Patience is a great virtue. And I know when you're standing in line, say at Fergburg, you're in Queenstown, you've got to wait a while to get the double Fergburger. So they've got to be like that. They've got to be a bit more patient.
Yes, definitely. I think the big focus for the Rebels, though, has been that defence, hasn't it? And it's held them pretty well with those opening few games where they've been close, some may say, and you could hard to disagree. They should have won at least those opening couple of games, but despite that, they still look pretty good, and I am picking the home team. The Rebels pick up the win for the opening game of our weekend. I'm going by 6 points for the Rebels. That's probably, you'd say, a little bit generous towards the Waratahs, but how about you, Shane?
Similar, mate. 7 for the Rebels.
Oh, very similar. Right, we're both going with a home victory. Let's crack on. Back over this side, we've got game number 2, which is the Hurricanes versus the Chiefs. I think they have the home boys. I quite like this. It's more likely the home team's going to win. That's what we like to see. So game number 2, Saturday night, 7 o'clock, of course, here in New Zealand. We'll be in Wellington. Hurricanes and the Chiefs. Boy, honestly, if I look at this game, I say, if the Chiefs are going to win this one, it's an upset, isn't it? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I do. Having said that, both sides are very similar in the way they play. Other than perhaps the Chiefs run a little more at angles and the Hurricanes run a bit more narrow or straight. Look, at home in Wellington, I would hope that one of these sides gets a little bit more consistent than what they have been. And what better way to do it than against another inconsistent side? So that's. But this is a derby, Steve. You know I love this derby. It's my favourite New Zealand derby. I call it the Hawaii shirt derby because it's got cool vibes. So I will be wearing my Hawaiian shirt on Saturday night after Chook Lotto and everything down at the bowling club and whatever's going on. I want to see all you guys on Twitter doing the same thing. You got my Twitter handle, at Schooler This is the Hawaiian shirt derby. Put on a Hawaiian shirt. Show us what you're barbecuing as well. But going to the game, Steve, look, I just want to see the Hurricanes play some expansive rugby that we know we can. And I want to see a bit more from Mackenzie. I reckon really you got to make a decision in the next year or two about him. Honestly, he's wonderful to watch when he's good. But geez, he's patchy. And that same with the, some of that Hurricanes tight five in their back line too. So you really had a toss up, like the state of Georgia.
Yeah, come on. Political stuff. No, you're going way over my head there. No, not going into that at all. Look, this is two teams that haven't won all season. It's going to be a first win for someone, and it's two teams, as we segue perfectly into the starting 15s for these sides, with inexperience in that number 10 jumper. So let's have a look at the two teams. For the Hurricanes, you'll get to that number 10 in just a second. Of course, injuries really wreaking havoc with this Hurricanes lineup. So for their team, front row, Xavier Numia starts at loose head. Ricky Riccatelli is at hooker and Tyra Lomax on the tight. James Blackwell and Isaiah Walker-Leary. Yes, good to see that youngster starting for the Canes this week as well. That's the second row. Reid Principe at 6. Duplessis Creefy starts at 7 and Adi Savia at 8. Here you go, Shane. Brace yourself for this one. Luke Campbell at scrum half and Auburn Ledger at fly half. Now process that one for a second as we go through the rest. Nagani Lamapis at 12, Billy Proctor at 13. The wingers, left side, Salisi Rayasi and Julian Savia has moved to the right. Process that one in your mind for a second as well. Geordie Barrett is at fullback. For the Chiefs, front row, Aidan Ross, Samasoni Takiaho and Angus Tartwell get to start for the Chiefs. Tupu Vai and Naitoa Akoi, the second row partnership. Mitch Brown, Sam Kane, and Luke Jacobson, our 6, 7, and 8. Brad Weber, yep, they get the different advantage there. But Caleb Trask starting in 10 for the Chiefs. Quinta Pires at 12, Anton Leonard Brown 13. Etini Nano Satura on the left wing. Jonah Lowe starts on the right-hand side, and Damien McKenzie at fullback. Boy, you kind of look at those key parts of those two sides, Shane, and you go, maybe, the Chiefs have a bit of an advantage in a lot of these areas, don't they?
Yeah. Oh, look, their forward pack is, when it plays well, is as dominant as any forward back in Super Rugby on its day. Weber can, Weber's a great halfback. As we've said, Mackenzie's can play some great games. But we're just, so you can see advantages for the Chiefs. And where, you mentioned the two halves for the Hurricanes. Gee whiz. They're going to have to be delivering some ball to their inside and outside back, so they're going to be in trouble. And maybe just looking at those lineups, it's where I'm going to have to say that I've only got a 1 in me once, and I'll have the Chiefs by 1.
Ooh. He's gone for it straight away. Yeah, I mean, when you look at this game, like before, Chiefs have literally named their lineup about 5 or 10 minutes before we started recording this. So I come on to get the lineups all prepared, and I was like, "Oh, damn you, Chiefs! We haven't got a team yet. The Hurricanes are a bit earlier." Then it just popped out, and I looked at it and writing the picks beforehand, I was like, "Yep, Canes will win this one." That's my pick. Easy come, easy go. But look at those two teams, especially like I say, those key areas, the halves, the packs. I think could go either which way. I think both sides have ability to be really good, like you say, but have that ability to go completely off the boil. The only real consistency you got, you're going to get something epic from Ardie Savea each and every time he goes out. He's going up against Luke Jacobson, another guy who's fairly consistent for the Chiefs as well. So there's a lot that could swing this game. And I look at it, it's hard to go past the Hurricanes. What they get from that backline is going to be so important. If they can get that equal share from the pack, and they need something big from a Lamape, from a Proctor. Savea on the right wing, that was a bit weird. That's kind of the wing that they like to have their fullback come winger sort of slotting him back and forth. When you got Rayasi on the other side, you got two very similar sort of style of players on both wings. You don't have that sort of, your 15 winger in that side. Jordy Barrett's going to have a lot on him. Are they going to get something more out of a Proctor, or are they going to rely on Rayasi to do that from the left wing instead? So, he's had a little bit of experience in the 15 jumper. So it's going to be interesting to see how that one actually goes between the two teams. But, I agree with you. I kind of like the Chiefs team, but the way they've played over the last couple of games, or they're only a couple of games this season, they just don't seem to have that ability to play 80 minutes. And we saw it against the Highlanders, and we've seen it last week against the Crusaders as well. Started off very, very well. Stormed down the blocks, in fact, against the Crusaders. And I saw that, and was a 10-0 at one point. I was like, okay, what's going on here? Someone's broken the Crusaders. But it didn't go on like that, did it? Eventually, the Crusaders got up. The Highlanders got up and just smoked them away at the end. Do the Hurricanes have that ability in them? We will find out, but I do think they are going to pip it. I'm going to go against you, but only because you never change your initial pick. So I'm going to stay with the Hurricanes, and I'm going to go the Canes to win it by just 2 points. I'm going very, very close, just like you as well. But I do think it's going to be a really, really interesting matchup for our opening game of Super Rugby Aotearoa. Right, let's swing things over back to your side of the ditch. The Reds versus the Western Force. Now, boy, as a Reds fan, Shane, how good was last week? Oh, Shane's hang on. Swap Shane. There you go, Shane. Look, you're broken. I've fixed you. Come again. Start that again.
Connection briefly interluded, but we're back.
You're all good.
How good was it? It was great. And it just shows you that the Australian value and the Queensland value of sticking by your mates, as we talked about earlier, really paid off with a team that is just growing and growing in confidence. And make no mistake, this, if we get Super Rugby Trans-Tasman, the Reds will go close to at least 3 or 4 of those New Zealand sides as well.
Definitely.
There's just something that, again, sticking by Brad Thorne, sticking by these players, the youth. I sometimes think that Jordy Pataya can do some odd things, but he could do some magical things, and the magic of him grounding that ball, and the referee so confident in their decision too, and was proven quite right. Those forwards are just, Taniela Tupou is just amazing, what he does at scrum time. And you could see why the Wallabies have him off the bench in the last 30 minutes or so in a game to make that big impact. I think he played the full 80 and even booted the ball out into touch at the end. Just the small things. Tate McDermott was someone that, unheard of probably 24 months ago, just playing some really top-class rugby. Hunter Pasami, the development of him. And yes, I got my wish. They both played in the centres, him and Pataya, which I wanted to see. Jock Campbell, Angus Scott-Young, Fraser McRae. A lot of these players will be in the Wallaby side and finally wipe out that Waratah influence in that Wallaby jumper. I'm proud now, but it was really good. And having said that, the Brumbies played really awesome rugby as well. So it was probably the best game of Super Rugby in terms of an Australian derby that we've seen in a long time.
Yeah, it was a quality match for sure. That one was. It was exciting. Right to the end, and it's a sort of game that the Brumbies normally win, isn't it? The sort of game that you just see that more experienced, I guess, team find that little bit extra to get over the line. But this time the youth did it, and what a fantastic spectacle it was. It really, really was a great, great advertisement, especially for the Australian game. It's a shame we can't. Well, we will see that again once more in the round robin, and then, like you said last week, probably in the grand final as well. So let's have a look at these two teams. The Reds, they are up first there at home, and they're going against the Force. We'll talk about the Force more in a second, but the team for the Reds in the front row, Dane Zander, Alex Murphy, and the man you spoke about, Taliana Tupou, start once again. Angus Blythe and Lukan Salakai Loto in the second row. Angus Scott Young and Fraser McWright join Harry Wilson in a very, very strong looking back row. Tate McDermott, James O'Connor again, and the halves with Hunter Paisami and Jordan Pattaya sticking together in the midfield. And it's the debutant for the guy who's got a very difficult name to say, but Isaiah Dryasi. Probably messed it up completely, but we'll go off it anyway. Salusi Vainavalu on the other wing and Jock Campbell at fullback for the Reds. Moving over to the Western Force. They've got a win. They're happy, and they've made, I think, interesting and improving changes to their team for this weekend. So Tom Robertson, Phility Kaitu at hooker, Greg Holmes starting on the tighty side of the front row, Jeremy Thrush, and here he is, Sidaleki Tamani is back. You'll have more to say about that, Shane, I am sure. Fergus Lee Warner, Kane Koteka, and Bernard Stander are the back row. Thomas Kubeli starts at 9 with Jake McIntyre. The midfield, Henry Teifu and Tavita Kurandrani. This is what I kind of like. Richard Kahui, not the speediest man, but just being on the outside channels kind of suits his game a bit better. He starts at 11, Byron Ralston at 14, and Rob Carney is at fullback. And probably more noticeably as well for this Force team is Tim Ansey is in 20 on the bench. An outstanding performer as well before he took that little injury. So good team for the Force. This is a tough matchup though. But do you think they got the ability, now a few weeks into this competition, that they can actually stick it with the best teams in Super Rugby AU, in the Reds? This is a away trip though. It's got to be tough for them.
Well, I noticed that they're playing a very slow type of game, so they've got to be like a truck in the outback on freight. They've got to start shifting gears if they want to get some tries and some results. Look, how good is it to see some Wallabies come back to Australia playing Super Rugby, and it's because of a man called Andrew Twiggy Forrest, who's part of the Force organisation, who's opening up the checkbooks and bringing people home. And Isaac Rodder is going to be the next one that is signed on the dotted line, which he has. And we welcome him back to Australian rugby, but he's a red and a traitor. So it's great to have him back home nonetheless. And we're great to see that. It's great to see the Western Force doing this, opening up the checkbook, bringing Wallabies home, and hopefully, as this competition, Super Rugby AU, grows, it will be a premium competition, depending on how the Wallabies go internationally as well. So, look, they just got to. I think it's just a lack of finishing. Now, Jake McIntyre, when he left Australia as a Red, and came back as a Force as well. Force player as well, and did some time overseas. Just think he's a bit static. They haven't had a decent 10 since Giddo. And even then, the Force were known for grinding out results rather than just going and playing perhaps a natural attacking game, which they quite have with the backline they've got. So tries should be a focus. Playing attacking rugby is a focus, because we all know this Reds backline has been very good over the last 18 months. They're not afraid to do it again.
They're a dangerous backline. Yeah, they will run. They'll want to have a go. They want to score some points. And you're right. It is a very, very old sort of struggling. They're not going to just run you off the paddock, are they, with pace or extreme wonder and brilliance? Are they? Brian Ralston, a guy, he can do something special, but a lot of the others, Henry Tifu is a guy who's going to bulldoze you and run over you. Kurandrani the same, Kahui the same. Rob Carney's going to do something smart. He's a clever player, but they don't have that massive X factor. But it's good to see, building on what you said about Tamani, it's guys who are current internationals or should be current internationals, like Rodder as well. Guys that are still at their best. We've seen a lot of them, like the Kahuis of the world. And to be fair, Rob Carney as well, past their best. Still quality players, but they miss that top-level current player. They've got the names. Jeremy Thrush, another one, well and truly past his best. Still an okay player at this level, but definitely not got that sort of next-level ability like the guy next to him this week will have. So it should be a test. I think a massive test for this team, whether they can actually do anything against this Red side. I'm going far and away. Reds should do this quite nicely. I've probably gone a bit conservative by saying Reds by 11, but I just hope the Force can play, a good hour, stay in this game, score some points, build on what they've done over the opening few weeks, and just do what the Rebels do and challenge these top sides. They go into this knowing that it's unlikely they're going to be able to pull off a victory. Hey, they should go into this believing they can win this game. But Reds, by far the strongest side. I'm going by 11. I'm hoping for a bit of a fight from the Force, and then the Reds to just finish things off at the end nicely. How about yourself?
I'm being a little more conservative. I'm saying Reds by 7. I think this derby's always been, I call it the blue-collar derby. It's one for us workers who really enjoy that style of rugby. We're going to see two different ways of how to do things. From the Reds, they play old-school Australian rugby, which I love, and we see from the Force a grinding sort of rugby, which is a little boring, but with their lineup, they can be very dangerous too. So we've always got to remember that. So, I'm going to say Reds by 7. I think, and I want to see a good game.
Mm-hmm. That'll be the most important part for this game is the high quality, and the Force. They haven't given up this season. They've been pretty stubborn. So I just hope they keep that up. Don't drop the heads of the Reds. Get a good start because they've not had the best start, the Force, this competition so far. They've generally struggled to get into the games and had to fight their way back. But they have the ability to stay in this game and hopefully give the Reds a bit of a run for their money. Right, let's go on to our last game of the weekend. And it's the game we don't have the team for, but it's probably one of the highlights that everyone will be looking forward to. It is the Blues at home. Oh, those scummy Aucklanders. They are at home taking on the might of the Crusaders. And this is one of those games where it really divides this country. That's for sure, Shane. I don't know what sort of viewpoint you get it from over there in Australia, but here, you kind of like you're an Aucklander and you support the Blues in this game, or you're from the rest of the country and you just want the Blues to lose. So you'll support anyone that goes up to Eden Park. When it's the Crusaders, what are you, back to 100 million titles to their name champions, you're feeling pretty confident they'll go into it and actually get this job done. But the Blues, certainly, they are up there, and this is old school rivalry. We talk about rivalries a lot. This is old school. Auckland versus Canterbury. It's about as old as it gets. This one, it just has to get you excited for the weekend, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, and it's on a Sunday. It's afternoon rugby. Old school rivalry, traditional form of rugby. What better way can you ask for a barbecue to start the afternoon, get some good food in here, and watch some rugby? Now, I do have a viewpoint because my first 2 Kentucky tours were in New Zealand, and I love the country. My first view of New Zealand was in Auckland. And my greatest memories of New Zealand were in the South Island. Actually, I shouldn't say that. I love all of New Zealand. I love the Bay of Islands up north. But it's just yeah, it does bring the intensity, and I believe from days past when New Zealand had its own competition before Super Rugby that this was intense. So, yeah, look, naturally I have an affiliation, any ABC, anyone but Crusaders. So, you know, but they are a good team for a good reason. And the Blues are the ones that are coming up, just like your Reds and your Brumbies in Australia. So, you know, it'll take 80 minutes plus more, given the Crusaders, to knock them off. Can they do it? It's probably their best chance. They can't lose forever, but having said that, the Crusaders know that they want to keep their crown as well.
You've got a fan of the barbecues in there, Shane. Look at that. Thumbs up for it. So there's one for the barbecue recipe this weekend. Make sure you get that out there. Big thumbs up for that. Yeah, I mean, this is a game that was robbed of last season, wasn't it? That final game, that didn't mean anything ultimately of Super Rugby Aotearoa the first season, but that was the big chance for the Blues. Everyone thought that was the opportunity that the Blues could actually finally defeat the crew. Well, not finally, they've done it before, but actually, get one up over those big boys. I remember when I was a kid, I had a T-shirt. Going on with what you said about anyone but the Crusaders, I had a T-shirt, and you'll love it, being from Australia. It said, I support two teams, and everyone probably had this as a kid, New Zealand and anyone playing against Australia. That was the mentality of that one. It's kind of the same sort of feeling about this as well, heading into it between these two sides. But it's hard to look past the Crusaders for this game, is it? The Blues have a chance to come name a very strong side. You doubt you'll see much change from what they have that's not enforced for the last few rounds of them, much the same as the Crusaders as well. Two very, very finely working machines. How much of an impact, though, Shane, do you think that home advantage, being at Eden Park, you're going to get a big crowd? I expect you should. Auckland, they've had many debacles with all the lockdowns and stuff like that there. Big chance for everyone to get out there and support their team. Is that going to be a massive factor for this one?
We'll make sure it's a big public assembly booing those blokes from South. But it's yeah. Look, every time I talk up the Blues, because I do, probably with both the Blues and the Hurricanes feel very strongly towards them as adopted sides, but look, I can't go past the Crusaders, mate. I really can't. I think it'll be a lot closer than in previous years, though. I think we'll see how much it's a real big test of how far this Blues side has come and how far they can go to challenging the top dog. And I'll say Crusaders by 5.
Jesus, you've absolutely copied my answer there on that one. I've gone exactly the same for margins. Yeah, Crusaders by 5. I did think about this one for quite a while because it's hard. A 7-point margin or more is kind of like you kind of feel like that's probably a bit too much in this game. Actually deserves. I think it's going to be close and tight. I do think the Crusaders are going to come away with it. That comment in there from Jacob, he feels like the Blues would have lost last year. He thinks this year will be different, he hopes. So we'll see what does happen there. And yes, another good comment coming in from Ripen GT. Roger Tuivasa-Sheck from the Warriors in the NRL will be a hit at the Blues next season. That is something I'm sure will be talked about a lot after this season is complete and going into the next one. I guess, like I say, this Blues team, it's kind of like the Reds, isn't it? It's the young, it's the up-and-comers. These guys have got years ahead of them if they can keep this core of this team together. They could be a real hit, and adding a guy like Tuivasa-Sheck in there could be a massive, massive boost for that team as well. But we've both agreed on that one. The only one we've gone separate on, what did we go separate on? None. Did you go the Chiefs or the Canes?
I went the Chiefs by 1.
Oh, that was the one. That's right. The Chiefs and the Canes, the only one we disagreed on. Everything else we have agreed. So we'll see what happens on Saturday. But that is us. Our 4 games done. Big fun. Shane. Enjoyed your company yet again. So a big thanks to you for coming on and on the show and having your say. And a big thanks to everyone in the comments. We've had a whole heap of comments today. We've tried to look through and go through. Fans of the barbecue in there, Shane. The Blues fans going through there as well. Highlanders fans. Even had a man, look at that, loving your quote about Frogburger. So everyone's in getting behind Shane's good old comments as well. So that's a big thanks, everyone, for coming by. We'll see you again this time next week on the Thursday, around about 5 p.m. New Zealand time. We will be here previewing another round of Super Rugby Aotearoa and Super Rugby AU. Until then, big thanks to Shane. Big thanks, everyone, for tuning in and watching. We will see you all next week. Until then, though, take care.